Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Imago Nutrition Podcast. My name is Mark. I am one of your hosts, and I am here with Danielle, our registered dietitian extraordinaire. And this is the podcast where we answer your questions and give you practical nutrition strategies to help you and your family flourish. And so if you are someone who struggles to stay consistent with your nutrition, whether that's for weight loss, general health, anything of the sort. We know that nutrition influences all of that. And so if you're struggling to stay consistent, I think this is going to be a particularly helpful episode for you as we tackle this big topic of consistency. And so if you have a question you would like us to answer, you can always send those our way. We love reading through the submissions and answering real questions from real people so we can give them real advice to get real results. And you can do that by going over to Imago Nutrition. That is IMAGO nutrition.com/podcast. And there's a form there that you can fill out and shoot us your question, and we will review those for possible use as a topic in a future episode. And so, Danielle, hello. And as always, we drop these episodes on Monday. And so how was your weekend?
It was good. It was good. We're thinking about the school year and getting into new routines. So Carter is starting piano and Graham is starting soccer again.
That's what I'm talking about. Well, obviously I'm a soccer freak, but I did grow up playing piano. As you know, Mona, my mother, had all the kids do piano. Although I think Jared got out of it, your husband. I think he got out of piano. He went right to like saxophone or something like that. So yeah. I don't know how that worked out. He said he did a little bit, but he did a little. Okay. Yeah. I remember one year when I was younger, I asked for my birthday. I don't remember how old I was, like 7, 8, 9 years old. I asked, the only thing I wanted for my birthday was to stop doing piano lessons. Now that said, I had already transitioned. I started playing trumpet in the band, and eventually in high school, I played concert band, jazz band. So I didn't get away from music by any means, but I was just kind of tapped out at the whole piano thing. Part of me regrets it, because I will say, if you're listening to this and you know music, you know that piano is arguably the best foundation for musical experience and education. So kudos to you. Kudos to Carter on the keys. That is awesome. So.
I think he chose it just to be different from his brother, but we'll go for it. We'll see how it goes. Oh my goodness.
So he chose it?
He did. We said, what's your fall activity?
Wow.
He chose it. Yeah.
That's very cool. I definitely want to reinforce that. So maybe I'll just FaceTime with him sometime soon, because that's incredible. He will not be sorry that he played piano. Trust me. Yeah, that'll be fun. And then I'll FaceTime with Graham and talk soccer. So all right. So we've got a big topic. Really, this is a huge one. I think this is something that everyone struggles with at some point. Okay. That's about as wide of a net as you can cast. I don't know anyone, including myself, that hasn't struggled with nutrition consistency at some point. Okay. And so the question that we're going to be answering today is, how do I stay consistent with nutrition? Okay. Very big question. I do a lot of weight loss client work, obviously. So some of these considerations are sort of specifically kind of moving toward the weight loss realm. But I want you to know that even if you don't have a weight loss goal, whether you have a muscle gain goal or you're an athlete with a performance goal, whether you're looking to optimize your health with nutrition, but you're like, do I have to eat a certain way in order to get optimal health outcomes, et cetera? This applies to all of us. Okay. I've really been focused on living, teaching nutrition for 20 years this year. It really started in about 2003 for me. And so I have gone through various bouts of struggling with consistency myself. Okay. And so, and I think you could probably attest to the same, Danielle. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I think also when you said that, I was thinking it could be consistency in fitness too, but we'll focus on nutrition, of course. But yeah. I think for me, I have a routine of something, and then you just kind of get bored a little bit. So
yeah, very true.
Consistency is hard for everyone.
Very true. Yeah, maybe we'll do a separate episode on fitness. That'd be a fun one to work through. I've been working with clients for nutritional consistency for decades now. I can say decades. And so that's really cool to think about the fitness side of things as well. And there's kind of an adage that I agree with, but I don't agree with. Some people say, well, fitness is easy, nutrition is hard. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I get the sentiment. That is, Fitness is a very particular discipline, of course, but nutrition is just woven into our life in a different way. I would say we have more interaction, of course, with nutrition than we do with fitness. And so this really permeates the extent of your entire day. It's not just like a little pocket of time, which has its own considerations, but this is really woven into our being. And, stated clearly, without nutrition, I mean, we die, right? So it's just like, this is not only just performance and optimal health. This is at its core level, it's needed. You have to eat. Okay. So in that sense, it's just, I think at a deepest level, it's ingrained. And again, whether you've got one of these various nutritional goals, there are some very practical, I think, guidance that we can give you today. No less than, I think, 16. Danielle, we've got a list of 16, right? I'll kind of lead us through, but we'll do a little bit of ping pong back and forth. And I'm mindful that I don't want this thing to be 4-hour episode, so I might need to get us going here in a second. But very excited to tackle this topic with you. And so if you're listening, buckle up. If you take notes, that'd be great. If not, you can always just re-listen to this. We got a lot of tips for you. All right, so number one, let me get us started. This one is really a big one. Okay. What I have a lot of clients do. And so number one is find your why. Okay. Why? WHY. Find your why. What I do this exercise with virtually all my clients is that we discuss why they are approaching nutrition. And some people talk about goals, and that's great, but sometimes the whys are deeper than the goals, right? So someone might come to me and say, I'd like to lose 20 pounds. The question is why? Well, because oh, okay, I get what you're doing, Mark. I want to have better health outcomes. That's a great one. Do you want more energy? Yeah. Do you want to feel better? Yeah. Do you want to feel more confident in your clothes? Yeah. Do you want your clothes to fit differently, etc.? Those are really the whys behind the what of losing weight. Okay. So what I recommend, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, Danielle, and I do this with clients in our consultations. Sometimes I also encourage them to write this down in their phone and actually go back to it and have that on hand, literally. We all have a computer in our pocket these days with smartphones. You can just have a note with a list of your reasons why. So when you say I'm struggling to be consistent with nutrition, I want you to write down the whys behind why you want to be consistent with nutrition, not just the how do I be consistent, but why. Do you want to increase your energy? Do you want to live longer? Do you want to have, more optimal health outcomes? Do you want to stave off the risks of things like cancer and chronic illness? Do you want, et cetera, et cetera? Write down an exhaustive list. Come up with all the reasons why you want to remain consistent with nutrition. I would say that's step number one. What are your thoughts on that, Danielle?
I like it a lot. I think some people can also think about like their family history. I think a lot of people that can be a powerful motivation to, if diabetes runs in your family or high cholesterol or heart attack or what have you, just staying mobile. So like you said, this is definitely not an episode just about weight loss, but just good health. Why is really important for sure.
Yep. Yeah. And even kids, if you're a parent, I call that the legacy why. I have a lot of clients that are parents, and they want to form a different path for themselves and for their kids. They want to be a better example. We know that more is caught than taught, in parenthood, and so et cetera, et cetera. So I think those whys are really, really powerful. And I often say when the what gets frustrating, the why gets you through the what. Okay. And so if your why is bigger, there's more of them, they mean more to you than the what it takes to accomplish your goals, the why will get you through the what when the what is frustrating. Okay, so that's my number one. And I'm curious, Danielle, I know you've got a list as well, so I'd love to toss it over to you. What would be our number two on this one?
Yeah, mine would be high variety. So that's making sure we don't get burnt out. I think no matter what it is, we can get burnout if we're eating the same foods all the time or so I just feel like falling in love with cooking in a certain way. It's not like we need to spend 4 hours in the kitchen every day by any means, but just one new recipe, once a month, and then incorporate that a couple more times to see if that is a new favorite and how often, you can find some incorporate that in variety, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yeah, and I think
say.
that's key because I think a lot of times people think, quote unquote, and we don't really use these terms. We don't use like healthy nutrition, right? We don't use some of those buzzwords. But a lot of people think that quote unquote eating healthy is restrictive, right?
Mhm.
It's actually less. It's taking away your joy. What we're talking about is expanding your joy with
Mhm.
foods and high variety mindset,
Mhm.
while increasing your chance of optimal health outcomes. That's the irony, is that diet culture would have you believe that you need to restrict, less, less, less in order to achieve your goals. And you've got to shift your mindset to know that you can think expansively about foods, expansively about variety. Because chances are most Americans are not actually eating high variety. That's the
Right.
reality. We all get into our ruts, we all get into our rhythms, whether
Mhm.
that's with quote unquote healthy food or unhealthy food. We tend to not be a culture that prefers high variety. So I think it's a
Mhm.
really potent point. I'm glad you brought that one up. And I just love high variety. I've never really used that uh, term specifically, to be honest. I talk about a wide array of food, et cetera, but high variety is a key mindset.
Even without new foods, before we move on, we were driving to Colorado, and obviously that's a very long car ride. And so Jared and my family, I ask, what kind of meals do you want this week? And Jared's like, why do you keep asking me this question? And so I was like, fine, I will write them all down. So we, in this car ride, wrote all of the summer meals that we could possibly think of. So we could
Mm.
see if we could get a month worth of meals without repeating. And those are not
Oh, fun.
necessarily new recipes or new meals to us. And so
Right.
that was fun and challenging to have, new, not the same side dishes, like
Yeah.
broccoli 3 times a week or anything like that.
Hmm.
So, and then obviously your seasons change. So that's another way to get some high variety.
Right.
Um,
Especially with
but yeah.
produce. Yeah. Very cool. Awesome. I love that one. So find your why, start thinking expansively about, your variety, whether that's, I love that, in a week time frame or a month time frame, right? It doesn't have to be ever increasing variety where you never go back, of course. So we are talking about consistency, and consistently hitting some of those nutrient values, of course, is very important, but doing so from a wide variety of foods and meals, is highly, highly helpful. So the third one, I would say, is dismantle dumb diet rules. Okay, so that sounds like something I would say, and I say that a lot because a lot of times what people think is that the reason they're struggling, or I think the reality for a lot of people is the reason they're struggling with consistency is because they're trying to be consistent with something that's dumb, if I'm just trying to be honest, right? So I have this conversation often. People are like, I'll be at the gym and they'll be like, hey, you do nutrition, right? Oh, I'm just struggling to be consistent. And I ask them, what are you trying to be consistent with? Right? I've never in 20 years had someone say, well, I've got a pretty, you know, strong nutritional framework. I'm trying to hit certain nutritional value. They say something like, well, I'm trying to cut out carbs. I'm like, well, no crap. That's hard. I think that's dumb. I'm trying to cut out all processed foods. Well, okay. No wonder you're struggling. I'm trying to eat no sugar. Okay. Well, it's dang near impossible, to be honest. By the way, all carbs break down into sugars. Right. And so it's just like what they're trying to be consistent with is unreasonable at best and dumb at worst. Okay. So we could get into that in various capacities, but essentially what you need to start doing is tearing down dumb diet culture rules in your mind. You don't have to cut out carbs. You don't have to cut out sugar. You don't have to cut out all processed foods. You don't have to cut out your daily Diet Coke. You don't have to cut out dot, dot, dot. Okay. So I won't go too much into that because we could go every diet, we could go every craze and just break down all the diet rules. But as a mindset shift, you need to open yourself up to be outside the bounds of what diet culture is telling you. So I'm just going to kind of leave that one there. Again, there's lots I could say. I could do about 6 or 7 hours. I know we both could on dumb diet rules. But from a mindset piece, I want us to break down these dumb diet rules. So thoughts on that, Danielle, or you want to breeze on to
No,
the
that's
next one?
good. It kind of goes along with my next one is to be on mission to find new favorite foods.
Mm,
And so when I'm working with clients, I often have a list of foods that you want to focus on increasing. And those foods are those are what we call nutrient dense foods. So they're
hmm
giving your body what it needs to flourish. And so if these foods are something you're repeating over and over and again, that's fine. But how can we really maximize how much we enjoy them? And again, high variety. But so like, I don't know, it could be a new vegetable or a new grain, but how can you even take the ones that you do know, those foods that you are having routinely, and make them taste better, taste different, and find some new favorites?
And what I love about that is I often tell clients too is that dieting is defensive, nutrition is offensive, which means you are on the offense when you are eating. You are not stumbling through life trying to avoid bad foods, on your heels. Instead of trying to avoid bad foods, quote unquote, I want you pursuing foods. I want you pursuing nutrient dense foods. And like, that's what I love about the way that you phrase that, which is you're on mission to find your new favorite foods, and so to pursue food as opposed to avoiding food is far more fun to go through life pursuing food and discovering food, right? And digging up that curiosity. And so all that's, in fact, I was at a party this weekend and it was hosted by some friends of ours that are from Poland. And they were talking about black currant the whole time, which is like at one point was almost banned in America because I think they thought it was like an invasive species. It's kind of like a berry, but it's prevalent in Poland. And I remember having it, I think, a few times when I was a kid. Haven't had it recently, but I was just talking with a few folks that are from Poland, and they were like, black currant is everywhere. And I'm like, I got to find somewhere that has black currant, And so all that's to say, that's what nutrition should be about. It's about pursuing things, not avoiding things. Okay. So I love that one. That one's super cool. All right. I've got another one, kind of hard line. Don't over restrict. I think this is one of the biggest keys to consistency. Again, kind of back to what I was saying, is that people are over restricting in some way, and no wonder you're having trouble with consistency because you've over restrict. You think consistency is about, like I said, cutting out carbs, cutting out sugar, cutting out all processed foods, not eating at restaurants, not whatever it is, chicken and broccoli and brown rice every day, right? You think that that's what you need to do to have long-term sustainable results. It's actually the opposite. Okay. So just kind of 3 subpoints that I've seen the most of. Number 1, people over restrict calories. Even if you have a weight loss goal, think about this. You should not be eating as little as possible to lose weight. You should be eating as much as possible while still losing weight. Okay. So we could go into the specifics of that for each individual. There's no carte blanche answer to what exactly does that mean. You do need to be in a negative energy balance in order to lose weight. That's not my theory. It's not a good thought. It's the first law of thermodynamics. You do need to be consuming fewer calories than you expend on average over time, but that does not mean that those calories have to be dramatically low. In fact, I would argue you're going to hurt your results. You're going to hurt several physiological factors, psychological factors, sustainability factors long-term if you over-restrict calories. Eating too few calories is one of the most, I think, demonstrable liabilities of diet culture thinking. Okay, it's just eat as few as possible, white knuckle it, lose weight. And then the question is, of course, what happens after that? Right. And we know something like 80% of people gain the weight back that they lose. Why? Because they were over restricted in the first place. Okay. So a slow weight loss journey is a healthy weight loss journey. Okay. Americans don't like that. They don't like the S word. They don't like slow. They want fast. They want 30-day fixes and detoxes. They want Twitter-sized captions. Right. But do not over restrict calories. Do not over restrict foods. Okay. So think high variety, but don't over restrict. Like I said, don't say you've got to suddenly cut out all grains. You got to cut out all sugars. You got to cut out all, carbs, et cetera. Which is kind of my third point too, is to not over restrict nutrients as well. Okay. Which a lot of diets put a severe restriction on specific nutrients. We don't want to do that either. So don't over restrict calories, don't over restrict food and drink, and don't over restrict nutrients. That's that one. Any thoughts on that, Danielle? You want to keep cruising?
Well, that's good. That's good. My next one is to fall in love with alternatives. So to explain this one, just thinking about maybe your favorite foods. And if those are not in the nutrient dense column, kind of what would allow you to find a new alternative that you really like. So Mark has described one on this podcast that he really enjoys. But if you have like a sweet tooth, or maybe you're more of a salty person, and you just, love desserts. What is kind of a dessert that can be really good, but also more on the nutrient dense side? So, for example, I don't know if anybody's done this, but frozen banana. You can throw that in the blender with some cocoa powder, splash of milk, and it's going to taste very similar to chocolate ice cream. So that can be a fun alternative. Not that we're avoiding chocolate ice cream, but to find some alternatives that you can really enjoy, I think is really helpful.
Yeah, and the one that you're referring to is my favorite. Currently, my favorite. I may move on to something else, but I make a no bake vanilla blueberry cheesecake bowl at the end of most days, and that's got some 000 Oikos vanilla Greek yogurt. It's got a little bit of fat-free whipped cream cheese, and then it's got blueberries, lots of blueberries, and then it's even got a little bit of crushed graham cracker on it. And I eat that every night, and because I love cheesecake. But don't have the money to eat cheesecake every night, by the way. And I just don't need to be eating cheesecake. I love having it on special occasions. But in terms of my daily, like my go-to, it's going to be that. And that I have a sweet tooth as well. And that satisfies me at the end of the day, gets me a great protein injection, finishes off my fiber goal for the day, tastes absolutely delicious. One time I described this in a class environment, and, I think I told the story. A woman was shocked that I put some graham cracker on there. Well, that's just a processed food. Well, it's fine. It's okay. Have you seen the rest of the way that my day shaped out? I can have a graham cracker at the end of the day. All right, So I love that. Yeah, falling in love with the alternatives is such a key. There are so many creative ways. I mean, for crying out loud, folks, we have the internet. You can research, you can dig up recipes, for virtually anything. There's trillions of things that are going to be uploaded to the internet today, for better, for worse, I admit. But if you're looking for quote unquote healthy alternatives for some of your favorite foods, have fun with it. Explore. Okay. So I would say, my next one would be, so we're going to kind of get into some more kind of mechanics, I think, here is manage your hunger. Okay, so trying to stay consistent. We've seen this in research. No surprise, great study that I wrote an article about some time back that said one of the number one key to what in researchers call dietary adherence shouldn't be a shock to us, managing your hunger, right? Hunger throws us when it comes to consistency. And so I've got 4 great points. I think you've got some things to key off here as well, Danielle. But the 4 that I go to start, there are many nuances, but the 4 big building blocks of managing your hunger that I work with my clients on, but we're going to give you right here on this episode for free. Number 1, hydration. Okay. Often hunger can be or hydration could be masked as hunger, or hunger could be masked as, I can't remember, however you say that. But a lot of times hunger is actually just hydration issues, signaling to your brain that it needs more. So keep in mind, like a carbohydrate, every gram of carbohydrate comes with 2 to 3 grams of water. So often when we're reaching for carbohydrates, our body is intuitively reaching for water, perhaps more so than the carbohydrate itself. Okay. So all that's to say hydration. If you're an adult female, no less than 91 ounces of water. If you're an adult male, no less than 125 ounces. That's basically a gallon on the guy's side. So all of us should be consistently hitting hydration targets every single day. That will begin to help manage hunger. Number 2, as I said, with calories, make sure you're eating enough. Okay, some people are really hungry because you're not eating enough, even in a weight loss environment. That's why you're struggling to stay consistent. Number 3, protein. We know it's the most satiating or satisfying or filling macronutrient. Protein, carbs, and fats. Protein fills you up the most, so it keeps you fuller longer. And also fiber. That's number 4. So hydration, calories, protein, and fiber are 4 building blocks of managing your hunger. So that, and by the way, all 4 of those are included when we do individual assessments, when we work with individual clients. All 4 of those are built into what we call a nutrition framework to make sure that whether you have a weight gain, weight loss, optimal health, no matter your goal, is that we are building those into the experience so that you can be more consistent. Any thoughts on that one, Danielle? I love your next one. I already know we did review our notes ahead of this one. So I love this next one from you on a few key things. So I'd love for
Yeah.
you to unpack those.
So mine would be working on mind hunger. So
Mm-hmm.
decreasing cravings. So decreasing cravings, you can do it a lot of different ways. What's worked for me, I would say that, I have more of a sweet tooth than salty cravings.
Yep,
And
same.
so what has worked for me is one, just simply decreasing frequency. So not
Mm.
avoiding it, not over restricting it, but just decreasing frequency.
Yep.
Um, so instead of having a dessert every night, make it 4 times and then 3 times a night or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other way that has helped me is just practicing mindful eating. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when you are enjoying that dessert, whether it's the healthy alternative or the, real brownie or real cookie that you're really
Mm-hmm.
feeling that would sound good to you, is that third bite won't taste better than the first bite. So
Mm-hmm.
taking it really slow, enjoying it without any distractions, no phone, no screens. So you can really fully enjoy that dessert.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other way that has helped me decrease cravings is finding a new routine when you are tempted. So
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, when my kids were younger, it was like a mental treat for me to like sit in front of the TV and have a snack and
Mm-hmm.
relax because I haven't done that all day.
Yep.
And so the thought of I really don't need that snack. I'm not hungry. I am tired. And the TV is just as much as a reward and as much as relaxing as having that snack. So I kind of would choose the other more often. So just having the TV without the snack as a treat too.
Mm.
So it could be something like if you're always craving something salty in the afternoon, before dinner, go for a walk,
Yep.
or go treat yourself with something else. Like, I don't know what could be,
I love
whatever your
activity.
treat.
I love workout. I love sunlight. I love
Mm-hmm.
conversation, social connection.
Yeah, go call a
There's been
friend.
several times where I just walk down our street. It doesn't have to be long. It doesn't.
Yeah,
It's just and actually changing the environment I find is key.
yeah.
Sometimes it's like you're sitting in your house. Like I work from home a couple days a week, right? Just being there. It's like it could be as simple as just going outside. Change the
Mm-hmm.
environment. You'd be surprised how the brain starts to process things differently. So,
Yeah. Go
yep.
garden for 5 minutes or yeah, take a quick walk. So
Yep. I agree. That's huge. I mean, decreasing or managing your hunger and decreasing those cravings
mm-hmm.
are I think two massive components to consistency for sure.
Yeah. Always asking yourself, is this mind hunger or belly hunger? That can really
Yeah.
help. So are you hungry to eat your least favorite food? Are you hungry or bored? Are you hungry or
Mm-hmm.
stressed? Are you hungry or nervous? Um, so being in tune with, how your body really is and not how
That's
it
key. I
feels.
mean, that's the first question that I think we often teach, clients is ask yourself, is this another way to put it, a nerdy way to put it, is this physiological hunger or is it psychological hunger?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a key question every time you open. I find myself doing this too. I'm just in the middle of a work day. I'm working at home. I'm downstairs checking the dog, drinking my water. And suddenly I open up the pantry door. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not actually hungry. I'm just literally looking in there. And we've all done that, whether the fridge or the pantry. And you stop. And the first question is, am I physically hungry or psychologically hungry? Right? Physically, mentally, physiologically, psychologically. It's a great question to ask. All right. Well, I've got a lot more, but what I want to do is I'll kind of get us through these, and then would love your input on these, Danielle, because you had really 4 big ones. I've got still a bit of a list, so I'll try to package these kind of quick and concise, but hopefully, again, they're just as helpful. I would say my next one is keep a food journal. This is actually rooted in research. It's not rooted in my preference. But research has been done that even if you're not tracking calories, by the way, you're just using a note on your phone and writing down what you eat. It has been shown that helps with consistency, or again, what researchers call dietary adherence, because lo and behold, when you have to write it down, when you have to put it in black and white, you have to put it on paper, we make different decisions. And a lot of times they are better decisions. Okay. So I would say keeping a food journal is another kind of brass tacks way to start increasing consistency, and then something that you've taught me is not just focusing on like, hey, what's one thing I could change tomorrow about that, but hey, what's something I did really well and I could double down on tomorrow, and to see it there on paper. Trust me, it changes things. Take 3 or 4 days, including a weekend. As a side note, just try this. Just take 3 or 4 days, including a weekend, and just write down everything you eat. You don't have to worry about tracking protein or calories or fiber or anything like that. Just write down the foods you eat. It's an illuminating exercise. Okay. So I would say my next one is keep a food journal.
Yeah, that's great. I like it a lot.
Number 6, make small changes over time. This is also rooted in research that we see that the farther someone, listen to this, the farther someone deviates from their baseline nutritional habits, the less likely they are to succeed long term. Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is another problem with diet culture. Diet culture says you've been doing everything wrong, do it completely different, and here's the prescription. So people do it for a little while, they white knuckle it, they adhere to something completely different than how they normally eat, and eventually they break. And they're like, oh, I just can't be consistent. But again, you were trying to be consistent with something that's dumb. Okay. And so it's like, yeah, I love carbs, but I'm going low carb. It's not going to work. The research bears it out. So what they talk about in the research is, again, that moving farther away from baseline is less likely to produce long-term results. So now for all of us, there still needs to be change. So what we're talking about is small changes over time. Okay. And this is going to push into kind of some of the timeline stuff that we'll talk about here in a second, but making small changes, one thing at a time. What's something I could do a little bit better tomorrow, a little bit more of, right? Doing that food journal exercise, and you're going to start to see it in black and white. Oh yeah, I could do something a little different here. Maybe that's why I'm so hungry, because I'm looking at some of these foods and they're not very filling. There's not much protein or fiber in my day, and so that's probably why I'm snacking a lot more than maybe I should be, etc. So I would say make small changes over time is another key. Any thoughts on that one, Danielle?
Yeah, I would sometimes call this food swaps. So, if you're having pasta, can you switch it to a higher fiber, higher protein pasta?
Yeah.
Or, if you're having chips with lunch, can you try seeing what a crunchy carrot would do in your hunger?
I love baby carrots.
So just swaps can be kind of a less intimidating way to kind of change your diet over time.
Yep, that's great. So make small changes. Next one would be to purpose to include your favorite foods and drinks. Okay, this one I wish was just common knowledge, but it's not, because diet culture is so prevalent. Purpose to include your favorite foods and drinks. Okay. So one of my favorite foods is, I've got so many. I love getting wings at our local barbecue joint. I mean, we're in we're middle Tennessee, we're in the South, and there's a place down the road that makes incredible wings. Do I eat those every single day? No. Do I ever restrict and say I can't have those? No. Even at home, can we do pizza night with our kids? Of course. I'm not on some no pizza fast or anything like that. Right. Purpose to include your favorite foods in context, of course, right? I don't eat pizza every day, every meal, but I sure as heck have never said I can't have pizza as some part of some dumb diet system, okay? So include your favorite foods. That goes back to some of the cravings too. That's borne out in the research as well, is that as people are able to manage those cravings, it's actually because they include those foods. It's not because they avoid those foods, right? Mm-hmm. Avoiding the foods creates that forbidden fruit mentality, and we actually start to crave them more only because we've told ourselves we can't have them. And that's just human nature. Like it or leave it. Okay. And same with drinks, and so if you enjoy a Diet Coke, as a part of your regimen, terrific. Okay. There's a lot of misinformation about artificial sweeteners. Maybe we'll do a separate episode on that at some point. But take a look at some of your favorite drinks, okay? Or find some of those really great alternatives, the non-nutrient sweeteners, like lemonade mixes are great. Get a little flavor in there. It doesn't just have to be about drinking plain water all day, okay? And even on the alcohol side of things, if you want to include those in moderation from time to time, do so. A lot of that whole dry January thing creates a February 1st binge, right? Because people just say no to alcohol for 30 days, they white knuckle it, they get to February, and then they celebrate by getting absolutely annihilated, right? And so why not just consistently build that into a plan, right? In context, okay? So include your favorite foods and drinks would be my next one.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that one.
Awesome. Well, if you disagree, let me know. We could just duke it out right here on this episode. People are waiting for us to eventually disagree. Maybe we should find something that we disagree on. If you would like to hear us disagree on an episode, please send us a note, imagonutrition.com/podcast. Just send us a note, say, yes, I want you guys to fight. So we'll find something. We'll find something we disagree with. We'll try. So my next one would be ditch the all or nothing mindset. Okay. Now, a lot of these have really built into this, but essentially, a lot of people are either on a plan or they're off a plan. Okay. Simply stated, they're a light switch. It's either on and they're doing all the things right, or they're off and then it's just completely obliterated with absolutely no consideration of health outcome. Okay. Mm-hmm. So I would just say, kind of like with the dismantle dumb diet rules, won't go into this one too much. I would say you have to move away from all or nothing. Okay. It is disastrous to have an all or nothing mindset in so many areas of life, let alone in nutrition. And so break down the all or nothing mindset, learn to live in the tension of the middle, which is, it is better to be 80% consistently than 100% consistent inconsistently. Okay. Because that 100 goes to 0 and back up to 100 and back to 0. I'd rather live, and have been living to the best of my ability, with definitely many deviations along the way, about an 80 to 90% consistent lifestyle for about 20 years. It's not because I've ever over-restricted or gone all or nothing, or thought, well, I'm either on or I'm off, or I'm training or I'm not, or I'm eating healthy and then I'm not, etc. So dismantle that all or nothing mindset.
Yeah. What I would add on that is, sometimes that is hard to find that balance, especially with like different health considerations. So if you have, the biggest one I always hear is someone with blood sugar concerns, also that has high cholesterol. So when we think about that, not to get into too much detail, they're focusing on lowering their cholesterol and then their blood sugars go up, or they're focusing on lowering their blood sugars and then their cholesterol goes up. So that would be a great conversation to have with one of us, just as far as how to get that balance where we're not, we're doing great with one and then doing awful with the other. So how can we meet in the middle? Those goals are actually together, but they feel really different. Wow. So I think that's really important to get some, really good information on how to do that.
Incredible. And I don't need to turn this into an ad, but would love to. And I know you're particularly skilled in that balance. And so if you're listening to this and you have felt that struggle, you have felt that oscillation or the seeming imbalance of those two goals, please reach out to us. We would love to help you balance that. And trust me, the solution is far more freeing than you may think. Okay. So ditch the all or nothing mindset. Along with that, I wanted to kind of pull this out as hopefully a way to remember this too, is that you want to embrace that process is greater than perfection. Okay, that's really the mindset you want to embrace. So I don't just want you to rip down the all or nothing mindset. I want you to replace it with the process is greater than perfection. There is not a single person on the planet that has done nutrition perfectly or does nutrition, quote, perfectly, because there is no perfect way to do it. Okay, you need to hear that point blank. There is no perfect ideal. And even the people you follow on TikTok are not, in fact, if they've had long-term sustainable results, it's actually because they are not attempting perfection. It is because they have embraced the process. Now, again, Americans don't like this as much. We want a solution to a problem now, and it better not take more than 30 days. That's why you're being sold detox systems, which are crap, by the way. There's nothing you could put in your body that would make it detox in a way that it doesn't already. Okay. It cleanses. There's no such thing as a cleanse, right? All these diet product systems and weight loss, hooey, if I want to use some old school term, right? None of that is actual perfection. Okay. It's just faking that there's a perfect system. Okay. So when you tear down that all or nothing mindset, you tear down those dumb diet rules. I want you to begin replacing that with the idea that this is a process. I am 42 years old. I got into nutrition at 20. I've been doing this 20 years ago. So I've been doing this since I was, 22. Okay. And I will tell you this, I am still in a process. Okay, so someone comes to me like, I've been working on this for 2 or 3 years. I'm like, cool, I've been working on it 20. The difference is you thought you would arrive somewhere. I never assumed that I would arrive. I assumed that this would be a 60, 80 year process. It's hard to hear, but you need to hear it. Okay. So that would be the next one. Replace that with a process is greater than perfection mindset. How you feel about that one, Danielle? We agree or disagree?
Yeah.
Should we fight? Okay. All right. Last three. Purpose to get back on track after deviations. This, I believe, is a massive skill. Massive skill. The people that succeed long term, it is not because they don't ever fall off the horse. It's because we get back on. That's the difference. Some people fall off the horse. It hurts. They stay on the ground. You have to get back on the horse. Okay. So it is not if you're going to deviate or fall off. It is when you are going to fall off or deviate. And the question is, what will you do then? Okay. So you have to prepare in advance that you will deviate and that you will also get back on. And the more you do that, like a muscle, the more you work that skill, the easier it will become over time. Okay. You'll have a system. You'll know just right foot, right stirrup, swing the let, you just get back on the horse. But the people that never practice getting back on have a really hard time getting back on. Okay. So that's my way. I don't know why I went Western theme on that one, but purpose to get back on track after deviations.
So when I hear this, if we want to like talk a little bit about this, the deviation part is kind of what we talked about doing.
Correct.
Right? We talked about including your favorite foods. And so I think what maybe we're getting at is how long we're on the ground or how long we're enjoying those favorite foods, or more so like, I don't know, for some reason I thought of like Thanksgiving and the holidays and how you have a bigger meal than you're used to, and then you have another bigger meal than you're like, it just keeps happening.
Yep.
We keep going to parties, or, you know, obviously there's seasons of time on your life that are like that. So when I think of getting back on track with what you're trying, that point you're making is, you know, after Thanksgiving, instead of restricting your calories, that's not how you get back on track. You have a high fiber meal. So, you know, thinking along those ways. So we're not trying to say two different things. I think when you're saying get back on track, it's not that we're off track because this is a process. It's just like how long we feel like we're not doing well.
Yeah.
Is more so, I think, what you're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like we're also redefining, I'm just going to continue with the whole horse thing. So we're also redefining what the horse looks like, right? So a lot of people think it's this high horse with these high standards, high restriction, and then they fall off and it's the lowest of the lows. It's the depth. But what if you could have your favorite foods while still on the horse? Like, what if the horse looks different? What if that path looks different than what you think? And you start to break down, again, some of the things that we've talked about and realize that the journey is actually far more freeing than you thought. It's not about on and off. But there are times where we, you know, again, whether you feel like it's vacation or a party or, you know, something really stressful happens in your life and you, quote unquote, you spiral for a day or two or a week, right? What you don't need is for one meal to turn into 2 days. What you don't need is for 2 days to turn into 2 months. What you don't need is, well, if I didn't do it by 2 months, then what's the point forever to even focus on this? So that's a bit of what we're talking about, is redefine the horse, if you will, and stay on this path, you know, toward these more optimal health outcomes.
Great.
All right, 2 more. So this one's kind of specific to weight loss, but also very specific, you know, also very applicable, I should say, to optimal health in general, or muscle gain, or athletic performance, or lowering high blood pressure, lowering high cholesterol, except that it's probably going to take longer than you want. Okay. Again, we have a hyper, I don't know what you would call it. I mean, we have an instant gratification culture. Okay. And we want to when we finally do identify a problem, we want a solution real quick. And by time next month comes around, this thing better be behind me. And now I've got it all figured out and I'm perfect moving forward. That's not how this works. Okay. So whether it's weight loss or something else, again, I've told you my timeline. I've been doing this 20 years. I feel like I'm just getting started. Okay. That's the sort of mindset you have to have. And particularly for weight loss, one of the reasons that so many people put their weight back on and never lose weight long term. There's stats about the amount of people that lose weight, but what they don't often tell you is the ones that regain it. It's because they did it in such a short time frame, in such a dramatic manner, and they learned no habits or proper nutrition along the way. They just adhered to a diet system. And by the way, anyone can lose weight if they just eat very few calories. Anyone can do it. Every single person on the planet can wither away on some super low calorie plan and lose weight. The question is, who can keep it off long term in a healthy, sustainable way? Okay, so all that's to say, I won't beat that dead horse if we're going to continue with the horse. Oh, sorry, that took a dark turn. Won't beat the dead horse there, but you just accept that it's going to take longer than you want.
Yep.
And then the last one, I just want to round this out by saying, return to your why. Okay. And so you want to make a consistent habit. That's why I love having your list of reasons in your phone or somewhere accessible. Return to your why. It was the first thing we talked about on this episode. I want it to be the last thing that you think about as well, is to go back to your reasons why you want to be consistent with nutrition. And again, if your why is bigger than the what it takes to accomplish that, your why will get you through the what. Okay, so no matter your goal, if your why is bigger and has more gravity than the what it takes to accomplish that, the why will get you through the what. All right, that's my finale. That's the end of my speech. I'm off my soapbox. What are your thoughts, Danielle?
Sounds good. I think that's a perfect way to end it.
All right. Well, if this has been helpful, we would love for you to subscribe so you get notifications of the upcoming episodes. We've got a lot of great topics on the horizon. Drop us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Love to hear from you. And share us with a friend, someone you'd like to talk about this stuff with. It's always good to have a community and social connection in and around your sphere of influence as well. So if we could be a part of that conversation or sparking conversation with you and friends and family, we would love the opportunity to help as many people as possible. That's why we do a free podcast. And so if you're on social media, you can follow us at Imago Nutrition. That's IMAGO Nutrition across all your major social media platforms. And as always, we'd like to thank Happy Pill, the band, for our theme song, Thinkin Bout Food. We'll see you.